Hey there, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Hope everyone is having a very happy Thursday. You guys are almost to Friday, so congratulations. Of course, if you're an entrepreneur, then you know that the week just sort of continues. So I hope that you're finding ways to create margin in your life so that you can have freedom of time and freedom in your money. And that's what we're talking about today. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today are three really common revenue myths. And you might be believing one of these myths, if not all three. I know that there was a time when that was me. I believed all three of these revenue myths. And once I learned the truth and learned how to see my finances differently, I was able to increase my profit. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So I'm very excited about this. Let's just go ahead and dive right into this. Today's session is not going to be super long, but I just want to share these three revenue myths with you. And let's see, I've got the chat going. So if you're here, say hi so that I can say hi back. If you've got any questions, comments, additional insights that you want to add, please put those in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, hear what you have to say, get your feedback, and also answer your questions. So please feel free to do so anytime. And if you think of something later, send me a DM. I'd love to connect with you. Would love to talk with you afterwards as well. So with that being said, let's talk about revenue myth number one. And that is, I have to attain X amount in revenue, whatever number that is, before I can pay myself. Now, this is one of my favorite myths to debunk. You might have heard me share this story before, but when I started my business as a personal finance coach, I did not pay myself for over a year. I think it was a year and a half. And the reason was that I believed that I had to reinvest all of my net profits back into growing the business. Now, how much money did I think I had to have in revenue before I could pay myself? I don't even remember. But the thing was, I viewed paying myself as taking away from the business. We want to change that mindset because, yes, you are serving through your business. The business gives you that structure, that context, that platform through which you are serving others using your gifts. But in return, the business is here to serve you. So you are supposed to be making money from your business. If you are taking a paycheck, if you are taking a salary, that is what the business should be doing. So don't view your salary and your income and your well being as being in competition with the well being of your business. They need to be working together. All right. So, what I would recommend, if either you haven't paid yourself or if that's been a struggle, or if you're feeling that tension between paying yourself and sustaining your business, that tells me that there's something going on. Either your expenses are too high or you're not getting the ROI that you should be getting on the money that you're reinvesting back into the growth of the company. So let's talk about that. Let's figure out what's going on, where the money is actually going, and then make a plan for how to redirect it, but without sacrificing your profitability. All right, let's go to, so actually I had truth. The truth is prioritizing paying yourself will keep your expenses under control and incentivize profitability. And I want to explain a little bit more about why. When you are committed to paying yourself a set amount every month, one, for the entrepreneur, that relieves a lot of stress, right? Because you are creating consistency in your own life. You can run your own life. You can pay your own bills. You can invest for the future. You can do so many things and feel the weight of that off of your shoulders when you are paying yourself a consistent amount every month, right? Here's the other thing it does though. Once you prioritize that, it forces you to keep your business expenses under control. It forces you to evaluate because now instead of thinking that I'm taking from my business if I'm paying myself a certain amount, the truth is that every expense that you incur is actually taking from the profitability of your business, and also potentially it could cross into taking away from your own paycheck. So I'm not against having expenses in your business. There are certain expenses you need to have. I want you to be able to operate your business the way it needs to be run, to do things right. That's all very important. But most of the time, most of us have a lot of extra expenses that really are not serving us or our clients. And they're really unnecessary and they need to go because that's money that could be going into your pocket instead. Furthermore, when you start rewarding yourself for a job well done, that incentivizes profitability, right? Rewarding yourself is energizing. It's it's a reward. And so that's going to encourage and inspire you and help you keep going to grow your profit and your revenue, of course, but to do it in a way that is profitable and sustainable. Okay, I think I've harped on that one enough. So let me know if you have any questions there. All right, revenue myth number 2. Oh, this is a good one. Once I reach X amount in revenue, because it's different for everyone, there's not a set number. This is all very arbitrary and relative. Once I reach X number in revenue, my life will look like fill in the blank. So, something that I often ask clients or potential clients, if we get on a consultation call together, is what are your objectives? What are your goals for your business? And many times I'll hear a revenue number. Now, if you and I talk and you have a revenue number, I'm not going to beat you up about this, okay? If you have a revenue goal. It's not that we shouldn't have revenue goals, but oftentimes we come up with these revenue goals, but the goal itself is very arbitrary. It doesn't really mean much because you can have a 6 or 7 figure business, but the revenue is not telling the whole story, because if most of that revenue is being eaten up by expenses, then it doesn't translate. It doesn't matter how much revenue you make. It doesn't translate into the kind of life that you want to have. It doesn't translate into entrepreneurial freedom. So, what we want to do instead is this: instead of attaching a picture of what you think your life is going to look like when you reach that revenue number, you want to determine what that revenue needs to be based on what it costs to profitably run your business and sustain your desired lifestyle. So we have to work it backwards. Instead of starting with revenue, we want to arrive at that conclusion of what the revenue needs to be by looking at, if I'm going to have retained earnings, profit, right? Keep the cash flow going, keep the liquidity in my business, what it needs to be fiscally healthy. If I'm going to have money to grow, to expand, to have an emergency fund, to run my business debt free, to not get behind on cash flow, then I need to have a certain level of profitability in the business, right? I also have a certain amount that I need to spend on expenses to keep things running well. And I need a certain amount to pay myself, right? So we have to factor in all of those things. Once you factor in all of those things and you calculate those out, what does that mean for how much revenue will be required in order to accomplish those other objectives? So instead of starting with your revenue goal, arrive at it based on a good financial analysis of what the life of what it is going to require to live the life you want and to run the kind of business that you want to run. All right. And then here's our third myth. The third myth is that I need to increase revenue in order to be profitable. So this is sort of this big underlying belief that revenue comes first and profit comes second. Now, there's 2 reasons for this, and they're both valid, but I want to separate that out from the mindset that leads us to adopt. So let me explain. When you just get started in business, it was all about revenue, right? You had your seed money or you had your investment or whatever it was, and you're going, okay, I've got this much, and then I've got to make some revenue from this, right? So at that stage, you probably weren't really thinking about profitability. You probably weren't thinking about what you're going to keep after expenses. You were just trying to make some sales, and that's okay, but you don't want to stay there. I once heard a very wise CFO share this with me, that you want your 100th dollar of revenue to be more profitable than your first dollar of revenue. Okay, that is scalability. And so we can easily get in this trap of always being focused on increasing revenue, but not really paying attention to, is that 100th dollar of revenue more profitable than the 50th dollar, more profitable than the first dollar? Because if it's not, then what you're doing is you are creating more work for yourself, more stress for yourself, more operations for yourself to manage, but you're not actually getting a financial reward from it. And I'm talking about both in terms of paying yourself, but also in terms of the profitable growth you can do, the scalability factor, right? So rather than only being focused on increasing your revenue and then leaving profitability as an afterthought, what you want to do instead is drive profitability and actually avoid revenue growth if it's not going to be profitable revenue growth. So I can't tell you the number of times that I've had conversations with entrepreneurs who are scratching their heads going, I doubled the size of my business. I went from 6 figures to 7 figures, or I made 100,000 last year. This year I made 300,000 in revenue, but I'm just busier. I'm more stressed out. I'm burnt out, and I'm not seeing the results. For some reason, I'm not seeing that profit that I want to be seeing. And so, what we want to do is focus on driving profitability, focus on increasing those margins. And yes, I know that we are in a season right now where profit margins are shrinking if we're just looking at the economy as a whole. But don't let that narrative of what's going on in the economy as a whole write the story or dictate to you what the possibilities are. Okay. Because if your margins are already tight, chances are there are things we can do in your business to change that financial story, to find ways that we can be more efficient, more effective, and to adapt and to find that scalability factor where your revenue becomes more profitable. So don't just keep going at the rate you're going, thinking that, well, the profit will just show up magically one day if I keep increasing the revenue. No, you've got to make sure that the profitability is increasing with the revenue. So you've got to look at the margins, you've got to look at the cost of operations. Yes, costs are going to go up as your operations increase, and that's okay, but they've got to be in proportion to the profitable outcomes that you are anticipating getting. Okay, those are the 3 myths. So let me know which one of those 3 myths you've been holding on to, and what is a liberating truth that you've discovered today? What's an insight that you've had? What is a question that's coming up for you? I'd love to chat more with you about that. So just send it my way. Please feel free to send me a DM or to comment here. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week.